And yeah, just one more tech. So I was waiting to see what Holland was doing, because I know that Holland very much wants to do this, which also requires admin 10, and obviously these guys want to do this, which requires admin 10. And Brandenburg, yeah, they're in the war, so hopefully that one doesn't last too long for them, although they still got another 2 years, probably a year actually, they'll likely do it ahead of time, to get the admin 10, which they require to then form Prussia. So we're about to see a couple of tag switches, and then another one over here. So I think there are basically 3 nations waiting. Although Russia is... oh no, Muscovy is actually on time. So Muscovy making up for their tech deficit somehow. And actually that's a very good question. Where are we with institutions right now? So Renaissance... feudalism has spread everywhere, unsurprisingly. The Renaissance has spread throughout Europe. Nogai is currently getting it. Let's actually switch to the whole world so we can see what's going on. Timmy doesn't have it yet. Oman does. Ethiopia doesn't. Kilwa doesn't. And then colonialism has now spawned and is slowly but surely spreading outwards. And it's in Coimbra, which is a Portuguese territory. Again, not particularly surprisingly. Holland's got it. Brandenburg's got it. They are the main powers to have it at the moment. England's actually got it in Calais, which means that it's going to start spreading to England pretty quickly. Portugal's obviously got it, and Castile will get it in pretty good time. So yeah, colonialism is now a thing, which the players need to start worrying about. And remember, we are playing with the No Development Institution mod, which basically means you cannot just spam development in a single province to build up your institutions in order to spawn it, which is why you won't see, for example, the Indians suddenly get that tech. It has to spread naturally, so it can spread either through knowledge sharing, that's how players can spread it between each other, which is a good source of money, especially for those who get the technologies embraced early, and also by just natural spread. So for example, colonialism will spread to countries that have colonies more quickly. If we go to a country which doesn't have it yet, like this, and then this, and then this, we can see that port neighbouring province with colonialism 0.7, nearby friendly province has colonialism 1.7, and then a port capital of a country with a new world colonial nation plus 0.83. So anyone with a colonial nation can get it as well. And also covert technology, you can steal tech, though that's not institutions, that's just technology. You cannot annex marches, no. You can, however, turn them into a regular vassal at a cost of 1 stability, or if you have diplomatic ideas, no stability, and then annex them. I think Brandenburg became a Polish vassal. Nope. Just allied. Brandenburg has a vassal, but they are not themselves a vassal. So I'm a little bit surprised that the carving up of Saxony hasn't happened yet. Saxon territories are actually pretty nice. Especially Leipzig, because it's going to be a source of coal. So there's probably going to be a little bit of a struggle for Leipzig between Bohemia and Brandenburg. Possibly even Cologne. And Cologne's taken Lüneburg, which is now stabbing into Brandenburg a little bit here. Like, Cologne's played a fragile game, as has Trier, to stay alive. I mean, Trier was definitely reduced in power somewhat last session by the coalition between Austria, Bohemia and Brandenburg, and I think they did suffer a little bit of, or at least Austria suffered a little bit of a comeuppance by the Ottoman invasion. But Cologne has traversed this. They managed to avoid the anti-minor coalition and has actually been prospering fairly well. Let's take a look at their development right now. They have 140, so they're halfway to one of their goals, which is to get a 300 development. And then Trier has 130. They can also switch to Westphalia or Hanover in Cologne's idea. They would need to take Stade for that. Well, Stade's right there. Oh, it's Brandenburg. Of course it is. If Brandenburg didn't own Stade, then we could see a Hanover, which would mean they'd get one of their goals like that. Any multiplayer rules about annexing a player diplomatically? Nope. Did Muscovy lose Kola? They did. They may have sold it? They have a truce for 2 years. Oh, that's Cologne. No, that is Denmark. And there are some Sami separatists, so we could see Sami spawning up here. And you've got a looming disaster, the Count's feud and religious turmoil. Oh dear. Denmark's going to be wanting to get this Reformation going as quickly as they possibly can. Are France also getting a disaster? No, France are not. So let's take a look at those disasters ticking up. They are here. So the Count's feud is to have a Regency Council. Oh, one of the following must be true to cancel it, so that's not going to do it. And then national unrest would increase. Wait, what was causing it? Have a legitimacy less than 90. They have a legitimacy of 62. So the Count's feud is pretty likely to trigger, which will cause them +7 unrest. So they'll have some quite serious rebel problems for a time. They need to have the centralization reforms, then they could have the Dhaka War. Dhaka. Different type of Dhaka, I know. And Sweden just had an explorer icon. I noticed that. So Sweden's got exploration and expansion. So we're going to see the Swedish Empire arising. And they're actually next door neighbours with Denmark. What a surprise. Meanwhile, in the Caribbean, it doesn't look like anyone else has expanded outside of the Caribbean just yet. It doesn't look like anyone's going for this territory either. Micmac having taken over Manhattan. That's brave, seeing as that's one of the objectives for a couple of nations. And then Vestbigen and Eriksford, which are going to be probably springboards for other colonial endeavours. And actually, speaking of colonial endeavours, we should probably talk about some more of the goals, seeing as there seems to be a little bit of a lull at the moment. So we've talked about the Ottomans. Let's go and take a look at the Papal States. Papal States ensure that Catholicism has more total provinces than Protestant and Reformed combined. This can be completed after 1550. So in another 20-ish years, they can do this. And basically what we do is we take a look at the index, religions, and then we sort by provinces. And so long as Catholic, with their 393 provinces, is more than Protestant and Reformed, which hasn't actually spawned yet, combined with their 96, then he succeeds that goal, and he can get that one from 30 years from now. So basically, it's in the Pope's interest to keep as much of the world Catholic as he possibly can. And the earlier that he can do this, and the earlier that he can suppress particularly colonial nations from switching away, means that we're going to have colonial nations which will be Catholic. And honestly, I think it's going to be the New World which swings this. So whether the New World goes mostly Protestant or mostly Catholic will kind of decide a lot of this, and that should definitely not be underestimated. And I suspect we're going to see quite a few colonial wars over religion because of this goal. They need to convert Syria and the Aleppo areas to Catholic. So this is one of the geographical areas. So they need to go down to Aleppo and Syria. Both of these full areas need to be Catholic. They don't need to own it. They just need to be converted. So if they, for example, sponsored the Knights to go into that region, that would count, and that would be a goal completed, and the Knights would probably appreciate that because the Knights would go bigger, or Venice, or whoever. They need to ensure that no nations are Protestant, Anglican, or Reformed once the Reformation is fired. That's going to be rather difficult, but they only need to do it once. So if they can at any time make it that no other nations are Catholic, Protestant, or Reformed. Oh, any of those. It's not all, it's any. So if they can completely wipe out, for example, Reformed, then that would count. What if Anglican happens? Will the Pope need to get rid of those provinces too? Yes. Oh no, Anglican's not mentioned. No, this is just between Protestant and Reformed. Although I probably will start adding Anglican. I'll need to rethink some of those because I kind of forgot Anglican was a thing. Catholicism must be the most numerous in terms of provinces. That one is very similar to the having more provinces, but is total, like, of everything. So right now that's Sunni. So the Catholics would need to overtake the Sunnis, which is basically encouraging conflicts between the papal sponsored territories versus the Islamic world. And then also Constantinople must be Catholic. Again, they don't need to own it. They just need to make sure that somebody makes Constantinople into a Catholic territory. Hungary is officially dead. Rip Hungary. So Transylvania got the extra territories, and Transylvania has some really nice ideas. We talked about those last time, so I won't go over them again. But yeah, nice. Very nice. Okay, Poland. Poland is up next. Poland must become the defender of the Catholic faith and keep it for 25 years. They need to make sure they mark down when they first get it. So I'm just going to double check to see if Poland is actually the defender of the Catholic faith. No, they are not. Doesn't look like anybody is. Pope is the Curia controller. We know that France is the defender of the Protestant faith, and it doesn't look like Reformed has spawned yet. Not seeing any Reformed notifications. No. No, I'm not. So no, I don't think the Reformed has spawned. I mean, it might be that England is going to try and get Reformed, which would make them difficult to root out, and possibly the Netherlands. Because there is so little Protestantism in Germany, we might well see a big Reformed Germany as opposed to a big Protestant Germany. That would be kind of interesting. Poland needs to own East and West Prussia area, which you will realise are these two, which are currently half owned by Prussia, which is another of the reasons I am so surprised that Poland is letting this be, because it is in Poland's best interest to not let Prussia form. What are they benefiting from this? I don't understand. Brandenburg knows that this is one of the objectives, and there we go, we've got a Prussia. I think we might see a Russia very, very soon, but Prussia is formed. Prussia might well decide to sell these territories now that they don't necessarily need them. That might have been the deal, but I still don't see it necessarily in Poland's interest to have a Prussia next to them. Prussia is just that much stronger than Brandenburg. Like, I would think it's basically in everyone's interest around them to not allow Prussia, which is why I didn't make it one of the goals, because they would try really hard to make it. I probably should have made it a goal. But also, I kind of wanted to see if Prussia could actually form, and it did. That guy is now that Prussian guy. Poland must have a border with Ming. That's one of the things I did in one of my single-player games where I was playing as the Poles. Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth in particular makes that a lot easier because you're a lot bigger. I did that over land. Don't actually state how they have to do it here. They just need to have a border with Ming. They need to own the entirety of the Baltic, Ruthenia, and Pontic steppe regions. So if we take a look at the regions, this one is designed to be a little bit more difficult. They need to take the Baltic, the Ruthenian, and the Pontic steppes. And currently, Muscovy do have a couple of territories over here, and Prussia have a couple of territories in that area. Genoa's got a couple here, although being overlord I think does count. So as long as Genoa remains one of Poland's minions, then that will count as taking the Pontic steppe once they've killed the Great Horde, of course. So they do actually seem to be well on the way to completing that particular goal. It will require a war against Muscovy at some point to take the couple of provinces on the borders, but they could probably do that in one war. And then finally, their objective is to become the #1 great power. So I wrote these goals with it in mind that they would form Poland-Lithuania, and I would have had to rewrite some of those goals had we actually had a Lithuanian player, because that would have made that basically unachievable. But Poland-Lithuania absolutely has the power potential to become the first great power, the #1 great power, and they only need to achieve it. They don't need to hold it. They're currently 5th. So that does seem to be pretty well on the way to achieving. The Pope has to beat France and the Ottomans. Yep, pretty much. I know it's become a thing, but how good is Prussia actually? Really good. Especially played by a competent player who knows how warfare works. It's really good. Mostly because their ideas, which are actually the same as the Brandenburg ideas. So they have the yearly army tradition plus 0.5, which means they'll always have good generals. They have the morale of armies plus 20%, which is equal to France's elan. They have yearly army tradition decay reduction, which means that combined with their increase means that their generals are going to be even more absurd. And then, of course, the very famous Goose Step, which is an infantry combat ability plus 20%. So it does mean that theoretically the Prussians could get plus 50% infantry combat ability, which is very, very strong. They get extra manpower from that, and then extra development cost. That one's relatively low. And then also the capstone is the plus 5 discipline, which means that Prussia can get really good discipline. Add that in to the Prussian monarchy, which is a unique government for them. It means that their rulers cannot have lower than level 3 military points. So their monarch's military skill is always going to be 3 or higher. They have absolutism, maximum has been increased. They get a ticking reduction to war exhaustion, which means they can stay at war for longer, and a reduction to national unrest, which means they have less rebels while they're at war. That really compounds, but then that is added to the militarism, which is this thing. And basically, if you manage to max out your militarism, it's an extra 10% discipline, something like that. It's really quite strong. And militarism will increase naturally if you're small enough. So it might well be their plan to sell this off so they become small enough so they get ticking militarism. But the territory requirements for that are really quite harsh. Or you can just spend military power, bearing in mind that your monarch's always going to have a lot of military power, so you will have it spare. And you can increase it by 10 for 49 military points. So it is entirely possible, and usually you will see this. If Prussia goes to war, this button will be pressed 10 times, and suddenly they'll be at 100 militarism, and their armies fight a lot better. Yeah, it's the government that's a big thing. I mean, it's the combination. It's their ideas, which has things like the combat ability, the good generals, and the morale, plus the government, which is discipline. Still no Netherlands and still no Muscovy. I suspect that's just because they don't have the admin yet. Oh, nope. Netherlands has got it, so they could press the button. They just haven't done it. I don't know why. Press the button! Press the button! And Russia hasn't done it yet because they haven't got the tech, although they could. They're probably waiting for the institution, which is a little bit of a weird choice. Because I would have thought that the sooner that Russia gets formed, the sooner they can start using Siberian expansion and start gobbling up some of these unoccupied territories. Although I suspect they think that this is completely locked off, so nobody else can realistically grab those. Prussia has been formed, but Prussian culture is not accepted. Really? I thought that was automatically done. It is. And I'm somewhat surprised that he's not done Saxon or Pomeranian, but that might have been because their accepted cultures were automatically changed when he switched, or he just hasn't realised that he's losing well over half of his productivity. I suspect that's because it's changed. Oh, Great Britain's formed. Right, I forgot that Great Britain was a formable. So England has better combat abilities. Great Britain has amazing naval abilities. So we're going to see a real naval powerhouse forming because of Great Britain. I totally forgot that Great Britain was a formable nation. Whoops! So that was the fourth. So it's the Netherlands, Great Britain, Prussia, and Russia that we were going to see. And potentially the Commonwealth. Maybe Spain. Did they take the ideas? I would think so. Because he's playing this very, very islandy. Yeah, British ideas. He's got the plus 20% naval morale, and then also the plus 15% heavy ship combat ability, and then the capstone yearly navy tradition. Like, Britain's ideas for the navy is just ridiculous. Global settler increase is really nice. Tariffs are okay. Tech cost is good. Discipline's nice. Goods produced plus 20. I did not realize they got 20% goods produced. That combined with furnaces once the Industrial Revolution starts. Ooh. And then naval leader, maneuver, and blockade efficiency. Yeah, Britain's strong. Britain's really strong. Who can Tunis form? I don't think anyone. Oh no, they can form the Mamelukes. Or Al-Andalus. They can form Andalusia. But they need to have taken Iberia for that. I would say it's actually feasible for them to form Mamelukes. Because I don't see the Mamelukes existing for that much longer, and then they basically need to take Cairo. So we may see a showdown between the Ottomans and Tunis, at which point Tunis gets what I would consider as the strongest government in the game. Like, Prussian monarchy is good. Mameluke government, though, is even more ridiculous. Because you can choose your own rulers, and you get the same mechanic as military, but for admin, which is used for coring. There's a lot more uses for admin monarch points than there are for military. Nope, to form the Netherlands you don't need to be either. I bet that he set his AI settings to not take decisions. That would be my guess. So it's unfortunate that the Maurici is not here today. Otherwise we would have seen the Netherlands forming as well. See if I've got any more personal messages.